Hi, everybody. How are you today? Today is September 24th, 99 days before New Year's Day, in case you didn't know. And we're going to start Hello Fairs Day. So we were introduced to Michelle Polar right here at our annual Jubilee just about a month ago. And many of us fell in love with her. She was adorable. She's from Venezuela, living in New York City. And she just was somebody who was so super relatable to us that we all had those goosebump chills and aha moments. And Tracy took it upon herself to say, this is the book we need to talk about, because fairs is something that not only comes into our life, but comes into our business. So we're going to get right to it. I'm going to open up my book here. I got my pencil. I don't like underlining in my book, but for our book club books, I always do that. And it's a really fun, easy to read book. What I found is that she was a very considerate writer. I read a lot of books, but I found that she was always helping us navigate the book and saying, well, if you want to skip here, go this way. And she was not shy in saying this was her first kick at the cat, and she was first-time author. And I found that very relatable as well, because we all get a first time at so many things. Hi, Ellen. So, introduction. She got off right off the start dedicating the book. And I love that she dedicated her book to her future kids. And Michelle is pregnant now, actually, and one of her fears was actually having a baby. And I don't know if you had a baby, but it's not the easiest thing in the world. But that was one of the things she was afraid of, and it was initially pain. And she has a very low tolerance of pain, as we learned through her Brazilian wax in chapter 1. But, it's just one of those rights of life that, sometimes we choose to have children and families. And she dedicated to her future kids, her husband, Adam, which you can tell she dearly loves, and their supportive family, that they have a good relationship, and to all the men who support and empower women. And it is a well-known fact that Tupperware is probably 99% women. And we do have men that are in the business, and I love to hear their perspective on things. But I find it's brave in this day and age to even say I dedicate this to women, because we're so politically correct and afraid to offend anybody. And I thought that was a nice gesture for her, because what it could have said is empower anybody who empowers women, or dedicate it to anyone who empowers women, because we all need a cheerleader. And if we don't have a cheerleader, we got to learn to be one ourselves. So the premise of this book was based on a project, an assignment in her class, and she gets right to that right away. But as she begins,
you back. We got to listen to this. This is for Tupperware.
I just muted her. Next time, if I'm on here, remind me to give someone else that ability to do that. And that's no biggie. I do that all the time. So the introduction is hello. And she's so sweet. We can hear her voice in our hearts from the Jubilee training. And if you haven't seen that and you have the ability to go do it, it's still there. I checked on it. It's still there. We can still access it. I feel like I have to give away all the good stuff to convince yourself it's worth reading. So I read this book and I'm like, she's still not confident enough. She has a published book. She's a blogger. She's on stages, and she's still saying, oh my goodness, I got to give you something to get you to pull in here. She's saying that she's a storyteller, and so we all are in our direct sales business. But she pulls us into the book by saying that she started a project. She brings us in with a few vulnerable moments, talking about some of her darkest fears, like jumping out of planes, dancing alone in Times Square. And so much of this is available on YouTube. It's worth your while to play around and seek her out. It'll get you really into the book and understand the voice that is coming from. Eating oysters, which I also think is gross, but how she inspired millions of people to do really scary things. And what we have figured out, hopefully by whatever age we're at now, is we can do scary things and we will not die from it. There's something learning in all of our fairs when we face that challenge. So she goes into her introduction saying that she wants her voice to matter to us. Now, we've already, if we know about her and we know she's on YouTube and she has millions of views, she matters. This was someone who was in a class, who her whole life, her parents and her family were like, well, she'll just start something and quit. And this is a woman said, I'm not quitting. This is 99 days. I can do 99 days of anything. And if yesterday was 100 days till the rest of 2020, what right now can we do in 99 days that we're really afraid to do that we can do? This is about a 100-day project, or it's not just about the 100-day project, because she does touch on that as her examples of how she went through her fears, which is very different than our fears. But she talks about embracing that. It's a very personal book. She's telling stories like she never told before, some embarrassing, lots vulnerable, and she wants us to do the same. She talks about us not believing what other people are saying, but believing in ourselves and uncovering who we truly are. And that the point of it was to embrace the message of becoming the best version of ourselves. And a lot of times we sell ourselves short. And if you listen to multiple entrepreneurs, they're all about supporting others, but not giving themselves the strength to do it themselves. There's another person I read where she went to 7 companies and said, I got a great idea. And all 7 companies shut her down. And then she said, well, I guess I'm going to have to do it myself. And now she's a billionaire with a great big giant business. She's on, her name is Shannon. Her nickname is Sunny. I'll share that later if you want to know who her name is. But she's a young woman who she gave everybody a chance at this great idea. And she tried to give away this $1 billion idea. And eventually she just said, well, F it, I'll do it myself. Fine, if no one else will do it. And she is an international success. So the introduction is a great way for us to get to know her voice if you haven't seen her. If you haven't seen her, I really encourage you, go to a YouTube video, get her little Venezuela voice and accent in your heart, and then read the book through her point of view. So she's about 30 years old, young girl, younger than me, and she just wears into you. She just becomes part of you as you read the story because we can relate to her. So I'm going to go right into chapter 1, which is Hello Life, from Autopilot to Fully Living. So her book inspired me to change her life. She wants us to change ours. And that is just to become a little bit more fearless and doing more. And she's coming from a really great place of, you know what, I was that person once and look at my life now. So she talks about when she's at the very beginning of the book, she's backstage. People are going, oh my goodness, Michelle Poler is coming on. And she's just like, I am not this hype that people say I am. She's still not convinced that she's good enough to go out on stage in front of thousands of people. And the introduction is that she's going to go on stage and crush it. And she's sweating and her heart is racing and she just wants to get the heck out of there. And on page 2, we've only gotten to page 2 and I've already talked this much. Yes. She's talked about wondering. This is her quote. This is the second sentence. If you ever wondered what your life would be if you weren't afraid, and this is the introduction. And Michelle is going, oh, I wonder what would that.
Okay, I gotta go. I'm gonna run here. Let me know when you're meeting.
Doesn't have lack of fear. She still has fear. She's just doing it. But the introduction is, hey, she's fearless, which is not the case. She's still full of fear. The introduction to her is so still blindsiding to her that she's like, and we all need to grasp this. We will never be fearless. We will just be courageous. So she's backstage. She goes on stage, and what she gets is a great big giant, yay! And she comes out dancing. Who remembers her dance? I remember her dance. So when she started her spiel for Tupperware, she was dancing, and all of us were sitting in our chair going, okay, let's see what this is about. But at the end of that 45 minutes or so, we were all like, oh my goodness. And we got up and danced and we took our picture and we shared it. And it was that shift of her sharing her passion, her courageousness, and saying, you know what? We relate to her and now we really get her. And we went from 0 to end of this video to, I want to be just like this girl. And all she did was share her story. So in direct sales, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to share our story all the time. It goes from, you know, we brought in the power chef and our husband made, or our kids may have said, ha, 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 it's like a chainsaw or a lawnmower. And they looked at this silly little apparatus that we were now supposed to sell. And now it's the first thing they grab when they're going to cook or make breadcrumbs or chop onions. And they see us take that. And that's the story I tell, how my husband took it and he laughed and laughed how he was starting a lawnmower. But now it's the first thing he grabbed. So we're collecting stories. And one of the first things I was told, because I was like, I don't have anything. I don't even know what to talk about. I got my kit, but I've talked that to death. What do I do? And they just said, collect stories. So I'm always telling my team, especially my team that come from a low, financial demographic, and they don't have a lot of money to personally invest. I'm like, just collect stories. If you have someone who has fridge smarts and they write you and they say, my goodness, my salary is 4 weeks old, write that down. And you know what? As you get your things, collect your own stories. And that's what we're going to be relaying. We are women in our kitchens just impressed with a product that's existed for 70 years. So the fearless, it's all about do things so we can pass it on and watch how your ripple just affects, in her case, millions. So I'm hoping to affect 38 people today. That's my goal here today. So in the middle of page 2, she talks about after her dance, she did this one thing. Her trigger was a little dance. She came out on stage and she felt good enough to get vulnerable and share her story. And the immediate impact of her words on the audience, going from who's this crazy little Venezuelan to, oh my gosh, we're all standing up and dancing. That impact on her was so fulfilling that she said, how can I stop facing my fears? Look what I just did. All these people are up dancing like strangers at 8 o'clock in the morning. And who's been at Jubilee 8 o'clock in the morning? Who's been there when Stanova was reigning king, right? And you come in, there's laser lights and smokes and bouncy spring people, and you're like, what in the heck? And then we're all on our chairs dancing and carrying on. We went from zero energy, tired, sleepy, drinking our coffee to hold my coffee and you're off and you're dancing. It's contagious. So that's what we have to do. And anybody here in a leadership position where you've brought someone into the company, even though you don't feel like it every single day, we do that. That's our job as leaders. Look at what we can do. We know not every day is going to be easy, but we have to show them that it's possible. Stay high and bring them up with us, right? Okay. She talks about, she talks about her first song that she heard that caused her this epiphany in the shower. Who has their best ideas in the shower? All the time. Who loves the shower? Because it's that one, hopefully, facet of the day where you can have 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes if you're really lucky to just be at peace with yourself and your own thoughts. And that's when creativity comes out. We have all this stuff stewing in our heads, but we don't give ourselves time enough to listen to these ideas. So in the shower, we come up with these brilliant ideas. And the key thing is to come out and write it down or share it with a friend or implement it immediately, because those ideas will be gone once you stack the day on it. We'll forget it. What was that really good idea I had? You're going to forget it. So implement it, write it down, share it with a friend, and then you get a partner to move forward, because there's nothing more. It's like you're accountable. When I share an idea with a friend, and I bounced ideas off with the director this morning, and she said, I got this really great idea. And when I called her immediately, because I know what it's like to lose an idea, she said, I'll call you back. She called me back, and it took her a few minutes to remember what this great idea was, but then we brainstormed for 20 minutes and got it to a final thing. And I said, do that right away, because you will forget. And she did it, and I already see it in action on her sales page. So sharing it and getting accountable is super important. Have somebody, whether it's, I call my person I bounce ideas off of, my muse. She's not exactly my peer, but she's somebody I know who can help me work through my ideas. So she heard a song, and the song was I Live by One Republic, and I posted that in the event. And if you watch the video, it was not what I expected at all. It's a video of a 15-year-old boy with cystic fibrosis who was basically told he'd live till his 30s. And this song features him throughout the video, playing on bicycles, water skiing, racing on bicycles, doing all these very adventurous things that even now I have not done, but I should have. And this kid just went, you know what? I got a life. I've been given a deadline, a potential deadline, and I have to do things or it's not going to get done. So how do we relate that back to direct sales? We do the things that we're afraid to do because we might fail. We might be embarrassed. We'll be judged. It might not work out, but we just got to do it, because anybody who's in a position where all of a sudden I've made an income, I've earned a free thing, I've completed Confident Start, I became a manager, director, etc. We did something we never thought we'd do on day one. So 4 years ago, I didn't think I'd run a book club, but I'm here for, several books later. I was not the same person, but I became this person by doing scary things. I was still scary and went upstairs and, slapped on the lipstick. I'm even wearing perfume in case anybody can smell me. And I wanted to be presentable to you guys. it's hard to say, these are my opinions, this is what I got, and open the plate, open the gates for you guys to share back. But that's what Michelle did, and that's what we got to do. So whatever it is, that good idea, that's a little poke, a little nudge from the universe going, you should go do that now. It's no different than when we get a trigger from a song and we think of a person. That's a little poke from the universe going, that person might be thinking about you. We have to do these things. And why not? Why not do it? What's the worst thing that's going to happen? We try and we fail. The best people in business and the highest, more successful people are the people who tried and failed and tried and failed and tried and failed. You won't get there without doing scary stuff. So she talks about branding. That's what she went to school for. And I have not implemented branding, but I can tell you on at least one hand, maybe moving over to the second hand, people that I've witnessed in top of the line, in Tupperware, in all of these people I see at Jubilee that have branded themselves, that are around the same kind of startup date as I am. So I'm 4 years old and I'm like, holy crap, look what she's doing. And I'm like, I had that idea in the shower 3 years ago, but I didn't do it. And this is what branding is. And during Jubilee, the tech guy, what's his name? Handsome fellow with all the good ideas. You know what I'm talking about. Scott? Not? You know, the tech guy. We know who we're talking about, him. He was name dropping some people and I'm like, I've been watching her and she's impressive. And she just did something that we haven't done yet. What's holding us back? We're the only people holding ourselves back. So branding is something where we realize that, yes, we take Tupperware and we sell Tupperware, but people aren't buying Tupperware from me because I sell Tupperware, because the neighbor sells Tupperware and someone down the street sells Tupperware. They're buying it because the brand of Carol Ann is magnetic. It has something that they want to have, and that's the relationship and the experience of taking the money and getting the product. And that's our brand. So we can do that. We can brand ourselves. Michelle's brand is, she's a adorable, sweet, harmless, young woman that we can relate to. And she's just going, I'm just like your daughter. I'm just like your friend. I'm just like your neighbor, but I did something scary. Like, she has so many things that she opens up and says, I'm scared I did that. And we go, me too. So we have to come up with who we want to present, because we are the brand and we sell the brand Tupperware. That's just part of who we are. So the question she was posed in her class was, where would you like to be 10 years from now? So she got out of the shower. She was told, you got to live your life every day. She went to school. They said, where do you want to be in 10 years? And when she had to break that down and get it down to the most simplest thing, she realized that it was impossible to get to where she wanted to go, this big plan. And she talks about that without recognizing that she had a lot of fears. So at the bottom of page 3, she basically says, and I underline this big time because I talk about this often, you don't want to disappoint future you with big plans that went nowhere and then you feel like you're a big failure. So 6 months ago, and I'll use weight loss because that's a common one for all of us. 6 months ago, I should have, started, buying less candy, bringing in less bread, bringing in more green stuff. Because if I did, I'd be that much closer to this dress size, because now I got to go on stage. Who was grateful we didn't have to go on stage at Jubilee because we never lost the weight we said we would last year? Me. It's just something we got to do. And I was just like, okay, I'm off the hook for that. And, we have these things and we go, and I'll use the weight loss example because I got a friend who's going through a weight loss journey now. And she said, it's funny because I lost 70 pounds for my husband, who's now my ex-husband, but I can't wrap my head around losing it for myself. And I'm like, so true. So what do you want to lose it for? Do you want to be a grandma with a double bypass? Lose it for your grandkids. But you have to lose it for yourself. And until you get the I deserve it and I'm possible and you create it, it really won't stick, because weight loss is like this, much like everything else. And the good thing is if we don't have a life like this, we're probably dead, right? This is what we want. We want a roller coaster, so we experience emotions. You don't know what a good Tupperware party is online until you have a bad Tupperware party. You need this so that you got that gauge of what's good and bad and what feels good. So she recognized in herself that she didn't want to miss out on what she had planned and dreamed for her future self. So, top of page 4, she started to write down semi-ambitious things that she thought would make her happy in 10 years. And she had, a very common dream that she'd be an entrepreneur, she'd be married, they'd be building a business, traveling, she'd be invited to speak to companies and events, and she'd buy her first apartment in a Manhattan. And if anybody don't know what the cost of apartment in a Manhattan is, it's about $1 million right now. So that's a pretty lofty dream for a 30-year-old. And at the time, I think she was around 25. So when writing her plan, her teacher said to identify one crucial obstacle. And she realized I had not lived my life because of one thing, which is fear. And fear is just a big general word that stops us from doing a lot of things. I'll read actually this last paragraph. Fear was the one obstacle that could totally prevent me from achieving my 10-year plan. How could I apply to the best companies in New York City if I was afraid of rejection? How could I then become an entrepreneur if I couldn't deal with uncertainty? How could I ever build a thriving business if I was terrified of networking and self-promotion? How would I ever be able to speak at conferences about my accomplishment if I was terribly scared of public speaking? And why would we buy an apartment in New York City if I've been struggling to feel comfortable in the city for the last 9 months? I wanted all those things, but I was dreadfully afraid of them. Who wants to win that $25,000 check or the WOW growth program and the Mustang? Me. I know if I, strapped down my Tupperware bag, now I can't do that now, but if I knocked on every metaphorical door in my city, I could get enough sales to do that regularly. Am I afraid to? Yes, I am, because I don't want to do that. I don't want to be crazy. So what can I do? So I'm in the middle of my WOW growth program now for probably the 3rd time, and I'm thinking, this is a lofty goal, unfortunate circumstances in sales, but I can't not try. So I have to do scary things to acquire very magnificent things. That's the only way to get to them. And what she realized was that she was hungry for success, but driven by fear. So we all want it, but are we willing to do the work? I would love to have a clean house every day. Do I want to get up, a half an hour early and make sure that the dishwasher is unloaded and, I can hang out with the kids and, after they go to school, spend whatever time doing the laundry and then getting to my desk. Like, I've broken up my day in a very practical way that suits my life right now. But there's things that I say I want, but I show no action towards, such as a showroom house, which is a little bit of a lofty goal, or, Sophia, what's that lady with the long brown hair on America's Got Talent, Sophia something or other, you know what we're talking about. That's what I look like in my head when I put on a dress. And I'm just like, that's not happening. So I had to do things to get the things that I want. And it's action. So her 100-day project, teacher says, everybody got to do 100 days. Pick what it is you want. And she worked through several ideas. And all of these ideas are great ideas. It's on the bottom of page 5. But you had to do one thing repeatedly for 10 days, which creates a wonderful habit. A way of tracking our tasks and, our practices on a daily basis. If you plan it, it gets it done. And at the end of it, they had to basically create this project for their teacher. So as she was trying to figure out how to make a better version of herself, no matter what idea that she came up with, it all came back to she had to face her fears because it encompassed so many things that she had allowed hold her back. So on the top of page 6, in her mind, what happened was, in the course of 24 hours, I went from a lifetime of no thanks to, okay, I'll try. I went from reacting to life to becoming intentional about my life. I went from autopilot to living life to the fullest. And here's the thing. Living life to your fullest is hard work, it's effort. And if I was to tell you, you got 2 months to live, or let's go bigger. Let's say you got 5 months to live. You would work your guts out doing all these magnificent things for maybe a month, maybe 2 months, and then you'd get lazy. And then you'd start to doubt, well, is it really true? We don't give ourselves the full opportunity to live every day. And actually, Oprah is a big speaker of this. She talks about living in the presence, like right this moment. If you're eating a meal, don't be, and actually, I think it comes up here too. If you're eating breakfast, don't think about supper. If you're out in the garden and you're walking your dogs, you don't think about, well, what about the dog that I want to get? I need more dogs. You think about what you have and you really appreciate that. So what she noticed was being afraid of walking through New York City kept her from going and visiting and exploring New York City. So that was one example that came up. And I I can't say I have a fear of big places like that, but I was definitely apprehensive of being alone in big places, which came up again. So there was lots of little connections that I was like, okay, I can remember feeling that. But her goal was to become a braver person, not just for herself, but a braver wife for Adam and a braver mom for my future kids. And this goes back to, I will do hard things for people I love, and we struggle with doing hard things for ourselves, right? So I'm just going to take a little break there because I've seen lots of nodding, and I'm not sure if you read this or not, but most of what I said, a little tiny bit was touched on in Jubilee. But this literally came from an aha moment in a shower, going to school, and the teacher saying, go do something hard for 100 days and tell me about it. And we have made promises with ourselves over and over and over again. I see all these repeat themes in our books, right? Do scary stuff and you'll get ahead. Do scary stuff and you'll be farther ahead. Do scary stuff and somebody will watch and try and be like you. And we just gotta give ourselves a benefit of doubt and stop breaking promises. I promise I'm gonna go to bed on time and get up early, and this is gonna be my perfect day. The thing is, if we don't know what our perfect day is, how are we gonna do it? How are we gonna do this thing if we don't have a plan to do things? If we don't challenge ourselves 100 times, in her case, she wasn't even trying to conquer a fear. She was trying to just prove herself, I can do scary things. And I can be full of fear, but do more things. And I'm still in the same position, but I'm stretching my comfort zone and I'm doing these things and other people are watching and look what I can do now. If we do stuff like that, I mean, like attracts like, and you're going to have that come around you. Watch how your husband's behavior changes, or your children's, or your coworkers, or your best friends. And we do start to become the company we keep. So if we're really trying to do scary things, watch how that little brave thing will help other people. So I'm going to leave it there because I know we got a little bit of time. We're about halfway through. There's only a little bit to this book, and I'm going to touch lightly on the 7 fears. But the last one is being in control, which we all try to control the results of. We try to control the outcome of what's going to happen. But I'd love to hear how her little speech in Jubilee impacted some of you guys. Because you're here. This is a big book club introduction day. We don't always get this. So something about Michelle struck a nerve with you. Jen McDowell, would you like to open your mic? Oh, she's like, yes, of course. You are the wisest of them all here today, I believe.
You know, I will be honest with you. When I watched her during Jubilee, I was not impressed.
Oh, I'm glad I chose you to speak. Tell me more.
It just did not, I don't know if it was her delivery. I really don't know what it was. It just did not resonate with me. I just couldn't get into it. Could have been the day, could have been what was going on in my life at the time. I don't know. But following up on it and getting involved a little bit more, there's a lot of really key ingredients that she shared that can really make a difference in helping us move others forward. And there's probably a little bit for me too, but I've kind of been one of those trailblazers as long as I can remember, like, you know, I'm just going to go for it and see what happens. It's kind of how I am by nature, but fear does play a role. And I think it's more, not even learning for myself, but it's more how I can help others get through their process, how I can help others to break down their own walls and their own barriers to be able to move themselves forward toward where they really want to be. So there's my 10 cents.
Well, I wasn't expecting that. But I would agree. I would look at you as a trailblazer and not afraid to do things that haven't been done before. And those are the people that are memorable. And we want to take the best of that and do it ourselves. So who liked Michelle? Maybe that's it. Because I know a lot of people had goosebumps. Go ahead, Tammy. You're a good sharer. You able to share today?
Yeah. See, I have the opposite effect. I think I'm also a type of person that can, you know, just take an idea and run with it. But I'm also the person that never stops to think about what I'm doing in the beginning. Like, I'm not a planner. So I'm a go-getter. I do it, and then I think afterwards. So when she was talking about her 10-year plan, that kind of scared me big, 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 big time, because I'm like, I could never sit down and write a 10-year plan. I wouldn't even know where to go with that. And that comes back to the goal setting, right? Like setting goals and then going for them. So I've been trying a lot since Jubilee. I've been trying to write down a daily plan or a weekly plan and go forward with that, so that my anxiety, that because I suffer from major anxiety, so to try and like calm that down. I don't connect with her on going after the fears, because it's just not something I don't think I would get anything out of that, because I'm kind of not really that fearless when it comes to jumping on stage or jumping into a project or, calling you up and having a chat. So like, I don't have those kind of issues, but I think the planning and the setting, like she sat down and she realized I need to come up with something for the next 10 years. Like, what do I want my life to look like? I've never done that. So that hit me hard. I loved her energy. I'm very energetic like that, so I really like that. But yeah, so I follow her on Instagram. This is also something I would recommend, because she has an Instagram page that she puts quotes up and things like that. And sometimes when I see it, it's really nice to just have that that boost of happiness sometimes, some days.
For sure. Anyone else want to share? Yes. Someone share who hasn't shared before. Be fearless.
I can share. So when I listen to her talk, I definitely let a lot of fear hold me back from time to time. But when I listened to her talk, it reminded me of like about 2 years ago, I went to Jubilee, and I told myself, and I didn't tell anybody else, but I told myself that this was going to be my Jubilee of yes, and that anybody, whatever they asked me to do, I had to say yes, which is why I didn't tell anybody else, because they would have asked me to do some crazy stuff. But because what I found was I was thinking about Jubilee the months leading up to it. And a lot of times it happens, right? Everybody's out, they're dancing in the aisles. They're like, come on, Ellen, come on, let's go. And I'm like, no, I'm good. And then after they stopped asking, I'm like, I really want to be dancing, but now I've already said no 5 times. And I would like hold myself back from that stuff. So, and I tell you, it was literally the most fun I had ever had at any Jubilee, because I just went for it. I didn't care about what anybody thought. I didn't care about what I thought about myself or how foolish I looked. I just did it. And it was so freeing. I came back and I just felt so energized and so excited that I let my guard down and just did it all, and I think a lot of times that's what it's that little voice in our head that just kind of holds us back and like, no, I'm good. I don't need to do that. But when you actually take that step and when people invite you to do things, they're inviting you because they see something in you, or they enjoy your company and they want you to do these things or have these activities with you. And that's a compliment. So, say yes. So that helped me a lot. And so since then, I think about that whenever I'm my knee-jerk reaction is like, no, I'm not doing that. No way, not doing it. And I'm like, okay, is this me saying I'm not doing it because I legitimately don't want to do it? Or am I saying I'm not going to do it because I'm afraid of how it'll turn out or how I'm going to look doing it? Am I going to look stupid? Right. And so, so I love this book because it's kind of like, it's diving deeper into, what I kind of discovered a couple years ago about myself.
You mentioned that voice in your head, which is an awful little being. We all have it. And it holds us back. But I mean, it's just pure judgment of ourselves. And what we got to do, whatever age or stage of life we are at now. And I always think back when I found like when I was like mid-teens, like 15, 16, I was always like looking at people and going, I want to be like that. I don't want to be like that. And so I guess I was judgmental at the age, or I was deciding who I wanted to become, because I really never had any limitations by my parents. They were just like, go be happy. Now, I wish they had said, go be happy with a university degree, but they didn't do that. But now when I'm thinking about myself, I'm like, well, what would little me say to me now? And even 4 years ago, if someone had said to me 4 years ago, make a 4-year plan, it would have included none of this, because I would have thought it was too big. And about a year or so ago, when I really started to grasp what I had to do as a director and a leader, was tell people that it's possible. And the one thing I wish I had done, and I say this so many times, I wish I had made my goal way bigger, because all the goals I made, I've already conquered them. And I'm like, I wish I had just, because it's hard to find that drive when you meet this goal. And sometimes we don't have a role model exactly how we want to be. And sometimes we stunt our own growth because we just don't have that goal. So if we dream really, really super big, like ridiculously big, and lots of motivational speakers would say, find the goal and then times it by 10, 20, whatever, make it bigger, 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 because you will get there if you keep visualizing it and believing that it's possible. And you know, we're just in different positions from when we started to now, and the fact that we're here is even a big deal. I said to my group recently, my organization, you know, so many people haven't said yes already. Be proud that you did that, because that took courage. So you've already done one scary thing and said yes to the membership. Now as you're sitting in it, what are you going to do next? What are you going to strive for? Because it was brave just to decide to say yes and then say, what am I going to do with it? That's your next plan. And I liked how Tammy said, you know, have a daily and then a weekly and a monthly. If you can't go 10 years, do what you can do, because every day if you did that one thing outside your comfort zone, that's where the magic is. We know that the magic exists when we do scary, different, unique things. And one of the examples she said was, I hate roller coasters. She'd never been on one. And I remember saying that to my daughter when we went to Disney. I said, we just need one roller coaster out of you. That's it. And she promised that she'd try one. And then she had to stop saying she hated roller coasters. Now, she does not like roller coasters. We didn't make her go on anymore. But then she could just say, I don't enjoy being on roller coasters. And she wasn't necessarily afraid, but we made her try. And then she was less afraid to try the other kind of medium rides, even like the simulators and stuff. But she had to have that experience before she had that solid statement, concrete, because she hadn't even done it. But at least she had the experience. And that's what these 100 things were. I'm going to experience 100 things that I thought I was afraid of. And a lot of them are just spin-offs of ideas, because she wasn't necessarily afraid of, you know, eating an oyster, but it grossed her out. She was afraid of her reaction and the embarrassment, and it encompassed so many things. But when we do things, our perspective is going to change differently. And like Jan said, the day that she heard her speak, it might have been the day whatever she experienced. You know, it could have been anything, any realm of things that affected that her perspective. All right, back to the book. She talks about her history, and one thing that I will point out that I really, really, really like, she talked about how generation to generation we carry things, and sometimes if our mom is afraid of, let's say, spiders, then we're afraid of spiders, and we don't even consciously choose that. It's just something that we're familiar with. So a lot of times, again, it goes back to the company you keep and the people that you surround yourself with. You're going to become so similar. I mean, look at girls in junior high. They all go to school first day. They haven't seen each other all summer. You got 5 unique beings, and at the end of the year, they're all in leggies and hoodies and Converse with messy buns, right? They all look identical. It happens. You become the people you spend time with. But she talked about wanting to take this opportunity to break her family's fear chain and redefine her own future. So she said, I choose so she can know. And here's a young woman who's, you know, newly married, about to start a family, and she's going, I just want to figure out who I am instead of being told what I'm afraid of or who I'm supposed to be. So I really like that. I think that was a great statement to say to all people at the beginning of a new chapter, young, old, wherever we're to. Along the journey, she discovered that she didn't have 100 fears, but only 7, and she talks about those core fears. In the middle of page 7, she had a lot of funny things where she said when she went to face her Brazilian wax, she went into Olga, and she talked about this, and she basically said to Olga, do you mind if I videotape this? Not knowing what was going to happen and that everybody would be watching this video. And this lady just went along with it and made the video better, and that she committed to getting that done, and it still was bad, but she did it, and then it was over, and she knew. She talked about facing 1 fear a day, uploading a video to YouTube. So that's something that I have no interest in. I don't think I'm afraid of it. I just don't want to do it, right? And that was her part of her project, to challenge herself to be accountable. Onto the fears. So she had pain, danger, embarrassment, rejection, loneliness, control or lack of, and disgust. So this was her encompass. So when we were to write down all the things that we're afraid of, we could probably get it down to a few simple things. And some of these for me are definitely some of my fears. But she talked about how all of these experiences gave her different feelings, and the feeling led back to something that she didn't feel comfortable with. So as we go into it, she talks about fear being a universal and extremely personal. So there's things that I won't do that I'm afraid of that maybe for you is a walk in the park. So when it comes to talking to our teams and talking to our downline and talking about, well, just do a live video, there's nothing to it, get over it. First one's the hardest one. I've really had to take a step back and go, there are people who are petrified of this. And I got to go back to the first time I did it. And for me, it was the house party for a complete stranger with all strangers inside the house. That was petrifying to me. You know, I really prepared myself for it, but on the way I'm crying in the car and I'm calling my husband and I'm like, well, I know I got to go. So I'm either going to go with big puffy eyes or I'm just, going to walk in and just say, I'm going to do this and let them know, hey, this is my first party with a bunch of strangers. Let's have a great time. So I got through that, and I do really miss my house parties because I found afterwards when I left, I was like I was leaving a rock concert. I was so high on energy and that I made an impact to them, and I knew I told them products that would change their lives, and we had some laughs and we got to know each other, and we walked in as strangers, but we left as we're all acquainted, but even some people as friends. So Tupperware really brings people into our lives that can have an effect, and the people that are watching us, our ripple reaches them, and you want to make sure that it's a positive ripple. So it goes back to sharing the stories, but don't discount the fears of others because they may not be your own. And she used her husband as her example. So she talked about pain and our low threshold. Some of the challenges she talked about, okay, I'm going to read from the top of page 11 because I underlined this. Some of the challenges she did related to this fear were eating very spicy food, like doesn't bother me at all. It bothered her a lot. Acupuncture, walking around New York in high heels, getting her ears pierced, Brazilian wax. And these are the things, like this is something she literally wrote down as the thing she was afraid of. And I look at that and go, I've done them all. I'm okay. Give me something harder here, lady. Too much information, right? Danger. So this was her second core fear, was not about defying death. Her project was not about defying death. It was more about living life. So we're all not going to jump out of an airplane. It's not something that's probably even going to bump into our life. But for her, she chose this as a, fear that she had. That's something she had to do to say, I'm going to take a full chance at doing something very scary or life-threatening. What she wrote was jumping from a perfectly good airplane. My husband says that all the time. Why would I jump from a perfectly good airplane? Swimming with sharks. Riding around a bike in New York City, all these little things that was in her life. So if you plan on talking to someone about this, be very open to that. Their fears may not be your own, and they might even be, trivial to you, but perspective is everything. Embarrassment was something that is probably one of my biggest fears. So I read that, and I look forward to reading that. She talked about the fear of embarrassment being closely related to the need to fit in. To belong, to maintain status quo, which tremendously limits our authenticity. So by limiting ourselves because of fear of embarrassment, we're limiting our authenticity and individuality. So it said, if you can relate to this fear, I have 4 words for you. Read chapter 3 and 4. So I'm going to read chapter 3 and 4 probably this evening because that one struck a nerve. And it kind of brought me back to Ellen's story where, they asked me 5-6 times. By the time I was ready to do it, the dance was over, because she didn't want people to look at her or judge her. And that's part of it. And that's the evil little ego that we got on our shoulder because we want to fit in. And then there comes a part where, well, I'm the director. I don't want to do that. I'm the director. Or I'm the business leader. I'm not going to do that. I'm the business leader. Whatever the case might be, right? But being part, everybody wants to be part of something. A big gaggle of girls having fun. It doesn't matter who you are or what capacity you are. Because sometimes the person coming in on day one is just like, oh my goodness, I'm part of this. And look no further than at Jubilee. You got people that are just brand new in the business and people who are experiencing their 20th, 30th, 40th Jubilee. And the energy can be the same for everybody. And I can think of a few key people who have been in the business a tremendous amount of time, and they're always very they're very welcoming. They're very, just go do it. And it comes with the wisdom and experience of doing and being around these things. So be authentic. You might be embarrassed. You might think you're embarrassed. And that's the other thing. We think that everybody's watching us, but we need to get over ourselves too, because we're thinking about it all day long, but they're not thinking about it all day long. You know, it's just that moment. We think that they're consumed with our business, but nobody really cares. Rejection. For her, she wrote that this is about emotional pain and hearing no, and that deep ache in our heart of disappointment, or that we're not enough. Who hates sending an email asking for a party or a sale and getting nothing, or getting no? But nothing is worse, because it's just pure, you're not even worth the no thanks, not right now. And that's something we have to pass on and teach. Some of the fears that helped her face rejection during her project were asking strangers for money on the street. I mean, if you were stuck and your kid needed to get a bus to go to their dance recital, you would ask a million strangers to get that $3 for the bus, right? It goes back to, why aren't you doing it? She lists several things about rejection and criticism that scared her. And then she said, jump ahead to chapter 5 and 8. And this is, I really appreciated this. I've never read a book like this. I'm like, how sweet of her to tell me where the good stuff is. Very considerate. Loneliness. She had a fear of being alone. I love being alone. Best time of the day is when all the kids are in bed and Tammy's shaking her head. Danielle likes it. Tracy likes it. Some people are like, no, my husband hates being alone. And when he is alone, he got the radio blaring. I'm like, how is Stephanie O'Brien from Oz FM keeping you company today? Like, turn that off. You know, he doesn't even realize the stuff he's listening to all day long, but he needs it because he feels alone. And whatever the reason is, it's his thing. And I'm just like, I can't wait for it. But for her, it was something that she had to really look into herself to see why it was a problem. She talked about disgust. That's where the oysters came in. Yeah, I just don't want to eat them. Even changing a poopy diaper. That is not a fair. That's just gross. Really, it's yucky. We can change our own babies' poopy diapers. We just don't want to change other babies' poopy diapers. And that's the thing, is when it's for somebody, for us, or for that we love, we can do things. It's not as scary. Okay, control. So this is the big one. Raise your hand if you're a control freak. And a lot of us are. We want to know the outcome of something before we put our effort in, or we want to know that people are going to listen when we give them the energy and the time. Case in point, how do I have a great Facebook party? Here's 10 tips. Here's how you implement them. Let me check on your Facebook party. 3 days later, you didn't do anything. And I gave you an hour of my energy. Why did I do that? You have to track this stuff, right? Sometimes we got to let people fail to realize that it stings to fail. You know, sometimes we got to have a miss in our title status so that we understand that it's not very nice to miss our title status and miss that percentage of pay. Okay, this is what she says. I got this underlined and scribbled. Control is one of the fear that doesn't allow us to live in the moment. And I would agree, because we're too committed to the outcome. Before coming face to face with the rest of our fears, we have to make the choice to take full advantage of the one life we were given. The more we try to be in control of our lives, the less we will be able to experience it. And I read that and I thought of so many times where I was at a thing, but I wasn't really at a thing. You know, you're talking to a friend on the phone who you haven't spoke to in like 6 months, but you're allowing your kids to come in, or your husband to come in, or you're thinking about supper, or, you know, you're worried, you know, about the time, and you're not in the moment with your friend, and your friend gets off the phone and she felt like she was disconnected. You know, there's all these little things where we're not truly present. Simplest thing would be enjoying a meal and thinking about supper. I do it all the time. Or the kids are eating breakfast and they're like, what's for supper tonight? They're already fantasizing, what's this next big meal I'm going to have? And you just got to enjoy it and savor it bite by bite, and, you know, be in that moment. But, you know, we talk about wanting this outcome all the time, but we're so busy, and busy is not a very good thing, but we're so busy that we're not enjoying the actual thing that's happening, right? And it's a really hard thing to, it comes with time. It's a really hard thing to face in yourself. She talked about ranking our own fears. And there's a little chart there, and it's just all her 7 core fears. And I looked at that a long time before I actually decided what to write down, but I knew immediately what my first one was. I was like, embarrassment, but didn't even think about it. I hate being embarrassed. That was the number one thing. And the rest of them I had to think about. So I know where I need to focus my work. And, you know, things like this help me through that. If I stumble, if, you know, I was going to say burp. If I burp, you know, I'd be normally, and back in the old days, I'd be mortified and thinking about that all day. Now it's just like, if that happens. But there's all these little things where we got to figure out the truth of why we are afraid of something. And sometimes it could be something as simple as something that happened in junior high, or, you know, somebody you love said something and it stung, and it, you know, it wasn't intended that way, but that's how it landed on you. So I think it's really important to look at that to see where your one fear is. And if you could focus on that as we go through the book, and, you know, as you get off this today and you move through the day, just notice how often it creeps into your head or your daily action, and it makes you hesitant to do something all the way. Because a lot of times we don't give 100% because we're afraid, because at least we can go in our head, well, I didn't win the race because I didn't really try, right? No one likes to be second, third, fourth, fifth. But those people who practice for weeks and months leading up to it, they love the fact that they finished the race. So a lot of times we're just jilting ourselves. The truth is that the main reason we fear something we haven't tried before is because we don't know what the outcome will be like. So true. The unknown. She talked about how she used to say, and I touched on this already, that she was afraid of things and she hadn't even tried them. And she actually mentioned the roller coaster, which was similar to my older daughter. She just was frightened to death. I'm like, Mommy won a trip to Disneyland, or earned a trip to Disneyland. You're getting on a roller coaster. We are going to get that one picture from the camera, and it's going to be $50, and we're going to get that, you know. And she had to go through it, and she didn't like it. And I mean, she held onto my hand till it almost fell off, but afterwards she like, that was the first thing she told everybody. I got on a roller coaster, but I hated it. So that was a really key memory for her. Our comfort zone expands as we face our fears and contracts as we limit ourselves. The problem is that our ignorance is feeding our fears by the minute. So just not understanding something will often make us say, I don't like that. Who likes sushi? I'm going to tell you a funny story now. I love sushi. Here's a funny story. Actually, now I'd say how many people tried sushi. When I met my husband, we were dating a little while, and he traveled a lot. So when he'd come home, he'd take me to a nice restaurant in the downtown area. And I went and picked him up at the airport one time. And he said, let's go out to lunch. And I said, oh, where we go? He said, let's go get sushi. And I'm like, oh my God, no, I can't do it. And I had tried sushi several times as a young girl, and I didn't like it. And I was like, well, I really don't love sushi, but if you have other things, I'll go. So we're eating the sushi, and I tried a few of his pieces, and I didn't really try. I actually love sushi now. I didn't try the flavor I like now, but I tried a few things. And afterwards he said, I really appreciate you coming. I know you didn't enjoy it, but this is my favorite restaurant. And I'm like, oh. And I was like, oh, well, it was okay. And he said, well, that's okay. I'll just find someone else to go with. You want to see a girl go crazy, right? This is the love of my life. And he says, that's okay. You don't have to like sushi. I'll find someone who likes sushi. And what he meant was one of his fellows, one of his chums, crazy control freaks, Scorpio, goes, oh no, I'm going to like sushi. I'm going to like sushi real good. We're going to sushi every day. And it was that thing that made me go, well, I'm going to have to try everything till I find something I like. And now it's our favorite place to go. But we still laugh at that because he never intended it to be, oh, I'll just find another girl to date. But that's what Crazy Brain, when I was a young girl, went to. But it was, I didn't even really give it the chance. So I do love sushi and many things on the menu. But it was that little startle in my heart that went, well, I'm going to have to figure it out. So I went from really not giving it a chance to now it's my favorite food. All right, down the page. To me, fear also used to be a sign of something bad approaching, and I did like this. And now I understand that the feeling of fear can also be a sign of growth. Butterflies in our tummy. How many times has somebody said to us that if you feel the butterflies, that's a good thing? And butterflies, we often say, is fear, but sometimes it's just energy bursting to get out of us. You know, I'm scared, I'm nervous, I'm about to go on stage. Our kids say that all the time. And we say, you're just excited, sweetie. You can do it. It'll be okay. It's 2 minutes. And then when we got to talk to ourselves, that little ego says awful things. But what we should say is it's just unused energy and that inexperience and the ignorance of not understanding what's happening. But it's usually because something big is going to happen. And a lot of times it is growth. That's where the magic is, right? Outside the comfort zone. The butterflies are a good thing. Oh my goodness, I got to go talk to, 30 people on my team now in front of the room. And I'm not sure if I even know how to do this recipe, right? So we got to really look at it as an opportunity. She discovered that the more she said yes to new experiences, the more we allow other emotions to jump in. And that's the thing. It could be so many things, but we name it fear. Surprise, freedom, curiosity, vulnerability, excitement, trust, and connection are a few of the emotions that she barely experienced before until she started facing her fears. And think of your life pre-Tupperware. We weren't who we are now. And that's so important. We tried something scary that a lot of people are saying, no, I won't even try. And look at where we've come. Look at the blessings we've brought our family and ourselves. In order to change our perspective on fear and allow other emotions to jump in, we need to embrace the unknown, even if it means relinquishing control. So sometimes, let's say your sister, your best friend's getting married. She has all these ideas, but you've been married 4 times. I haven't been, for the record. But you've been through a lot of weddings, and you think you know how to do it. And sometimes you're like, well, if you do it that way, this is going to happen. Sometimes we just got to let people figure it out for themselves. Sometimes, if your kid plans on procrastinating to do their science project on the last day, we know it's not going to be the best job, but we got to let people figure that out. Unknown and uncertain is okay. It's part of growing, and we just got to be able to let that go in the right times. What scares us most about the unknown is the idea of not being in control. And that is the fear she'd like to focus on for the rest of this chapter. She doesn't really go into it in depth, but she talked about that being the word that encompassed so many of her things. She can now say after her first 25 years of her life, not even on her wedding day, because even without realizing it on her wedding day, she was trying to be in control, so she didn't enjoy the moment. To me, being in control meant not leaving things to chance and doing everything in my power to get things in a way I thought I wanted to do. Being one step ahead doesn't allow us to enjoy the present. A lot of times we go to an event or, a birthday or a wedding and we go, well, I don't even remember it. We're so consumed with all the things to make it right that we don't actually enjoy it. She talks about thinking about what's for dinner during lunch. She goes on to page 18. She talks about her theory of time and memory. Basically how that many similar things get lumped up as one big blurry memory. We brush our teeth every day, but we can't distinctly remember this morning, was her example. And I didn't quite understand what she meant here until I got to the end of the chapter, and a few key statements summed it up. But she talked about singular memories, like a rock concert. I'm not actually sure. I thought of a rock concert and how I distinctly remembered that, but how our memory stores these. So if we were to say a generalized statement of house parties are, some people might say scary, some people might say exhilarating, some people might say awesome, or some people might say I'll never do them, I hate them, but never did them. Generalizing big things, which intentionally or could intentionally grow us, it's almost like toxic, and we got to be very careful about sharing them with our company, and as well believe in the statements that we say. I'm scared of might be something you never experienced, but she talks about her memories being generalized in different boxes. She talks about how our brain basically takes general things that happen all the time, like driving back and forth to work, or maybe doing that same thing over and over again, like brushing our teeth, becomes one memory. But when we experience new things and challenging things, we basically create all these wonderful little memories and boxes in our head, just like a vacation. And when she said the vacation, I went, oh, I get it now. We are living in our cities and our communities for years and years and years, but we go on vacation and we have maybe 10 new experiences every day. And when we come home, we see our photos and we tell the story to our friends about our vacation. we just fill it up. And it seems like it took an eternity to do this. We've been on a vacation for 10 days. Oh my goodness, it felt like 3. I can't believe we're going home tomorrow. And that's when it clicked to me. Because when you're really enmeshed into a situation, a new restaurant, a concert, a beach, you know, some experience, it's all these great, big, wonderful little movies. Like you can take a day in our lives, an interesting day, and make an entire movie out of it, right? But really, for somebody else coming in, if that's their normal, if that's their general day, it's not special to them. But when things are out of our comfort zone, it really sticks. And that's where new experiences got to come in. And she uses her fears as her experiences. She talks about how as a child, things seem to seem longer. And then when we travel, it seems so quick. And that was when I understood her concept. Epiphany moments like the one she had in the shower started to happen more and more often. And life started to feel long again. And it felt long again when she experienced all these new things she'd been putting on the back burner and ignorant to try because she hadn't experienced them. She talked about living in New York City felt like a year because as she went and actually experienced it, all these singular memories were accumulating. And then it was this great big giant experience. So that was, you know, that's how it really hit me and I understood. And she says it's up to us whether our life feels longer or flies by. So COVID, we've all been experiencing that for 6 months. Was it a long time? Was it a little time? Did it fly by, right? Or did it, you know, did it drag on every single day? And it depends on what we were doing on the daily day. I get friends that Maria Kondoed their house and just purged everything. I got, you know, friends that decided to take on a renovation project. And I got friends who just did nothing except for wait for it to be over. But if we fill our days with different things, and I mean, we did, I wish we knew then what we know now. We didn't know if this was going to be a week-long, you know, situation, or as it is when we're still into it heavy, you know, a tremendously long experience. And that probably would have helped us set our attentions better at the beginning of it, because we didn't want to take on a renovation if we knew we were going to be locked in for 2 weeks. But if we knew we were going to be locked in for 6 months, we'd be like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. So we were kind of blindsided by that. But, you know, it was different for everybody. But the more we live outside of our comfort zone and not on autopilot, the faster life will pass by. And it just talks about experience. Live outside your comfort zone and autopilot gets shut off. If you're driving the highway and you get on cruise control because you're going to the same cabin every weekend, you don't even have to think about it. I used to say my car drives itself. It knows how to get here. I've been here so many times. But when we get outside of our comfort zone and go to the same house but take a different path, it feels like a more enjoyable and a longer drive. It's talk about generating moments of joy that will stay with us forever, and you can create them for yourself and others as well. You know, oh man, I don't want to go to Nanny's house. Well, when you go to Nanny's house, make sure you talk to your cousins. I don't want to talk to my cousins. And they sit in the corner and they say that was the worst time ever. But if they had talked to their cousins and given them a chance, maybe it would have been a better experience. And that goes as simple as us going to an event. Do we get up and dance, or do we watch the dancers? You know, there's all different things, and it'll give us that feeling which creates the memory. What if you could change up your routine, or better yet, make it a part of your routine to do something different every week or every day? And this was her project. She talks about getting outside your comfort zone, trying new things, and that's what the Fearless project is. And she basically calls us out. She said, I know what you're thinking. Who has time for that? And it goes back to we'll make time. If it matters, we will make time. And that is it. You know, it comes up to me over and over again how many times my kids say, Mom, can you? And I'm like, I don't have time for that. And I remember one face my daughter made, and it just made me rethink it. And I went, well, I'm not making it a priority. And the message she got was, you don't matter right now. And I remember going every day with intention, I'm going to have to go spend time and catch up with her, like fully present. And it goes back to our work, our daily work in Tupperware. Is it important? Because if it's important, you'll make time. Is it a goal? Because if it's a goal, you'll make time. She talks about the pressures we're all under, and that regardless of that, it's not a matter of time, it's a matter of will. It's not can't. I used to have a friend say, don't say can't, say won't. You used to drive me nuts, because you can, you just don't want to. We all have the same numbers of hours in a day. And for some reason, some people get more done than others. Stop making excuses related to time. So just think of that. Stop saying it's time that won't get it done. Start being intentional and generate single memories that will last years and years. The planning and fretting about the planning is secondary to having the ability to immerse ourselves in the experience of fully enjoying them while they last, which is something that used to be almost impossible for her to do. And since you only live once, you might as well enjoy your time on earth. Down the road, when we're really, finished our experience with Tupperware, and we say, oh, I used to be a Tupperware lady. What type of Tupperware lady were you? I have people come up to me all the time. Oh, I used to sell Tupperware. I'm like, oh, tell me about it. Oh, I never really did anything. Oh, I'm like, okay, I want to find someone that's going to tell me a story here. So we love to collect these little credits and accolades and titles. I used to sell Tupperware. Oh, tell me about it. But they didn't really sell Tupperware. My thing is, if you're going to take that and use that as a title and shove it out into the world, make sure it matters. And we have so many people that say, I sell Tupperware, but they don't actually do anything. They sit on their computers and wait for somebody to magically put a message in their box saying, please give me $300 for Tupperware. But they're not talking about it. They're not opening their fridge. They're not showing their suppers or lunches. They're not selling nothing. They're just waiting. But they opened a group and they said, I sell Tupperware, but they're not actually doing anything about it. We're here to create legacies. What type of Tupperware lady do you want to be? When you share the story, or your husband or your friend or your neighbor or your daughter shares a story, my mom sells Tupperware. What are they going to say? It's the legacy. It's not that I signed up and paid money. If we could all put down $1,000 to lose, let's say 100 pounds or 50 pounds, whatever. Here's $1,000. We would do that in a second, but we will not take 10 minutes to go for a walk every day. And it'll be free. We won't do it. We want instant gratification, but it's work, it's choice, it's intention. And if we don't do it, don't come to me and tell me you sell Tupperware, because I've seen your numbers. You're not selling nothing. You have a group. You have to do tasks and create a habit and get in the process. You don't get paid like you own a business when you occasionally post something on Tupperware. If you want to get paid and have a car, you got to do the work. And it's just doing stuff, doing scary stuff, doing stuff you never did before. How can you get something you never had if you don't do stuff you never did? I never thought in a million years I would take my kids to Disney, to the Grand Floridian, and have everybody look at me and say, are you sure this is the place we're going? I'm like, yes, this is the place we're going. Because it was so outside of our comfort zone and our financial realm to go to the nicest place in Disney. But we did it. Or I should say, I did it, and my team did it. We have to really think, what can I do? What do I want to do? And what am I going to do it? It's no different than an apology. Oh, I'm sorry. Show me you're sorry. Don't tell me. It's all in the actions. If you're going to tell me I want to sell Tupperware, show me you want to sell Tupperware. Show me everyday actions. Show me when you're doing something scary, like passing, a catalog off to, your dental assistant, or, going on Facebook on your timeline. We're afraid of our timelines. Oh my gosh, I don't want to know I sell Tupperware. Ooh. Posting your timeline once a week. Here's the sale. This is what I do. Because you know what? If your brother was a carpenter building houses, you would be posting that every day. My brother builds houses. Go to him. He builds great houses. But we won't go, I sell Tupperware. We need to advocate for ourselves. And the one thing I try to teach everybody, no matter what the direct sale is, support it. Thumbs, hearts, comments, referrals. We're afraid to be the first one to do something, but it's the first person that's the trailblazer that has the long career. Success comes with work. It comes from doing scary things. It's a roller coaster. Do you think Jan has been like this from day one? No, she can tell you lots of crash and burn stories, all sorts. But that's exciting. She's still a legend. All right, that is everything I have to share. I'm really looking forward to this book, just because we need to hear about people who did scary things. We need to spend time on Instagram and look at people who did stuff. Stop watching Karen videos. I know they're funny. I know they're crazy. We all feel like we want to do that sometimes, but we don't. Stop watching negative stuff. Go unfollow these places where we're collecting all these terrible little videos or naughty jokes that we shouldn't be reading in the first place. Unsubscribe to a few of that so we spend more time on the positive stuff, because it's so easy to get distracted. We need mental breaks in times of stress, and the world is under stress. But cap it, a little tiny little giggle, and then move on to work. We're sitting at our desk and you're going, I'm working all day, I can't make supper. But really, were you? Because if you're not going to hire yourself at the end of the day, you need to get this all in check, right? You really got to be attentive to how we say we run our business. That's it. Michelle knows what she's doing. She's created a business out of nothing. She said, I don't know what to do. She said, I'm going to go on blog and do scary stuff. And now she has a career, and she's, working towards her 10-year plan. She's on stage talking to people, and she's still afraid, but she's doing it. She's about to have a baby. I can't wait to hear what she says about that. It was awful, but I did it. There's no turning back now. She has to do it. That's it. Anyway, that's it for me. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I love you all to pieces. I know that we can do scary things. I've done them. I was a wimp once. I'm still a wimp, but I do scary things. And we just got to be an example. People are watching, our friends, our Tupperware friends, our families. Lead by example. We will be okay, I promise.